Hello, dear viewers. You are on the Cross Moto channel. Throughout the entire history of motorcycle manufacturing, there have been very few diesel motorcycles. If we exclude homemade custom builds and focus on serial diesel machines, or at least on projects that at some stage were planned for mass production, you could count them on the fingers of both hands. And most likely, you're familiar with some of them. For example, with the Touring Enduro Trek 800 or the Military 1030. There is one interesting motorcycle on this list of machines that we will look at today. It's a French one. This large asphalt touring bike was equipped with a 1.3-liter diesel engine producing 59 horsepower. One full tank of the 30-liter fuel tank was supposed to be enough for a range of 1,000 kilometers. What was it like? When and by whom was it designed? And why didn't the motorcycle go into mass production? We'll sort this out now. Enjoy the show. If you dig a little into history, you'll find that the French were at the origins of motorcycle manufacturing at the end of the 19th and the beginning of the 20th century. The designs of French motorcycles were in many ways advanced, and the number of firms and companies involved in this industry was off the charts. A similar situation was happening in other technically progressive countries at the beginning of the 20th century, the United States of America, Britain, and Germany. In the 1950s, the European motorcycle industry faced its first major crisis. The population of post-war Europe had somewhat recovered from the shocks of World War II, and during this period, ordinary citizens began actively switching to cars, since four-wheeled vehicles had become affordable for a fairly wide segment of the population. The second, more serious crisis occurred in the late 1960s and early 1970s. This time, the reason was Japanese motorcycles, which in many respects began to surpass European machines and were somewhat cheaper. Every country has national ambitions. France, which was once at the forefront of motorcycle engineering progress, by this time had found itself on the sidelines of the industry. But the former greatness and ambitions remained. High-ranking officials in the government wondered, could it really be that great France was incapable of designing a good motorcycle? They announced a competition to create a people's French motorcycle. And in order to save on engine design and to make the finished product cheaper and easier to maintain, the condition was to use a mass-produced automobile power unit. Due to the competition, several BFG machines emerged, such as the 1300 with an opposed four-cylinder engine, about the detective story of which I told in a separate episode. The Motor Franchise 650 shares similar specs and engine design with our Dnieper and Ural models. The last constructions were the Bakkarda Aero motorcycle. Louis-Marie Bakkarda, a French motorcycle engineer, is directly related to the design of all this equipment. The first two attempts by Louis and his associates to build a people's motorcycle failed. However, after gaining enough bumps and bruises, Boccardo was confident that the third time would be a success. In 1987, Louis Boccardo returned to the world of motorcycles, presenting a new concept at the motorcycle show in Paris. This motorcycle was called Bakkardo Aero, and in the end, three versions of this motorcycle would be constructed. The first was the Bakkardo Aero 85, which used an inline four-cylinder gasoline engine, the PSATU-24. For example, Citroën cars were equipped with such an engine. There is some discrepancy in online sources regarding the power output, 85 or 97. For example, if you look up the specifications of car engines, you'll see power ratings in the range of 55 to 65 horsepower. The first motorcycle version has 85 horsepower, while the second has 100 horsepower. It's possible that the engines were boosted specifically for the motorcycles. I also don't rule out that the numbers might not be entirely accurate. Finally, there was later called the 1200. It was equipped with an inline four-cylinder diesel engine. With a displacement of 1,294 cubic centimeters, with indirect injection, and a power output of 59 horsepower. This engine was also used in some other models, Why was the focus placed on automotive engines? This was done in order to reduce construction costs and simplify maintenance. The engines had already been proven over the years, and in case of a breakdown or for maintenance, you could go to any service station. 1200 was a motorcycle for pragmatists, not for those seeking thrilling adrenaline rides. In 1990, the magazine wrote that somehow there was a buzz around this project, and about 32 motorcycles had already been built. About 15 of them were diesel. The chrome molybdenum tube frame housed the longitudinally mounted engine. A gearbox was attached to the engine, the same type that was used on motorcycles. From it, the torque was transmitted to the rear wheel by a drive shaft. A notable feature of the car engine was the timing belt. The magazine also noted that 6 employees worked in Louis Baccard's small workshop. At that time, Louis Baccard had secured the support of 24 dealers in France, and he also planned to export motorcycles to some European countries. Moto journalist Alan Cathcart rode the Bakkardo Aero in 1991. In his review, Cathcart noted that attempts to reduce the weight resulted in the motorcycle weighing a reasonable 250 kilograms. The engine starting procedure was interesting, although it is familiar to anyone who drives diesel cars. After turning on the ignition, it was necessary to wait 6 to 10 seconds for the glow plugs to warm up, and only then start the engine. Cathcart noted the smooth operation of the engine and its pulling power. He was also impressed by the 5-speed transmission with long gears. The motorcycle was perfect for laid-back long-distance journeys. The big tour could accelerate up to 112 miles mph. Complaints were caused by the rather weak 40mm fork by Yole and the rear wheel suspension shock absorbers by Fresnel's. Regarding fuel consumption, during test runs at a speed of 90 kilometers per hour, the motorcycle consumed 2.35 liters of diesel per 100 kilometers traveled. With the tank holding 30 liters of fuel, it was confidently estimated that on a single fill-up, the range would be at least 1,000 kilometers. This is impressive fuel efficiency for a motorcycle of this size. Among the top 5 most fuel-efficient production motorcycles, only one is included for comparison. The 2023 model, according to the magazine, consumes no more than 2 quarts and 1/2 cup per 62 miles. And this machine is a charming mini motorcycle. In a number of my stories about economical diesel motorcycles, I have come across comments like, "Oil tycoons are holding back this technology because they would lose their profits." I don't believe in your conspiracy theories. I doubt that even a series of 100,000 such motorcycles could noticeably hurt the wallets of the oil giants. Just look at the amount of fuel used nowadays for millions of trucks and tens of thousands of cargo ships, and you'll realize that these motorcycles would have saved just a drop in the ocean. In fact, the reason for Bakkardo's project's failure, as well as many other similar projects, was the high cost of the finished product. 1,200 in 1990 cost $11,500, which adjusted for today's prices is about $27,000. Japanese motorcycles with similar dynamic characteristics and comfort levels were cheaper. Also, apparently, the equipment did not receive government support from the French government. And that's exactly why Louis had to quickly forget about mass production of motorcycles. The money ran out quickly and the company went bankrupt. Various sources claim that Bakkardo went bankrupt in '89, but I think it all happened in '91. Otherwise, how could it be? Alan Cathcart reviewed and test drove the motorcycle, suggesting improvements to its running gear for mass production. There is also information from a French motorcycle magazine. Issue 44. For the year 2020 states that only 5 prototypes of the motorcycle were produced, 2 gasoline and 3 diesel, not 32 as the magazine claimed. What can be said for sure is that, like most other diesel motorcycles, the 1200 is a little-known part of motorcycle history. This is the rather vague story of another attempt by Louis-Marie Bakkarda to create a people's French motorcycle. This is where my story comes to an end. This has been the Cross Moto channel. Thanks for watching. Your engagement is always appreciated. Don't forget to share, subscribe, and leave your comments. Special thanks to everyone who supports my channel using the details pinned in the description. See you next time.